First, I'd like to say welcome to everybody, and thanks for attending VEADR 2012. There's a famous set of song lyrics that goes something, and it's kind of a crazy guy with curly hair who's saying it, "The times they are a-changin'." And probably not more true than in our business, what's already changed and what's going to change. And we all know what the changes are. It's getting more difficult. Insurance is tighter. Carriers want to spend less money. There's a lot of different issues that are going on. Big differences between the West Coast and how the East Coast and even the central part of the country manage cases and operate. So it's both a challenging time and an interesting time. And what I call the rules of engagement in these cases has changed dramatically. How we're handling them, and the mediators and the judges will talk about that a little bit later. So it's a very challenging time. So some of the things that we are going to talk about, some of the difficulties, the challenges, where the carriers and clients are exerting more control in how the cases are handled. And I personally think that's going to happen more in the next few years than we've ever seen before. Billing guidelines and related issues. Drive to push cases to resolution faster, cheaper, smarter. Reminds me of the old, and I'm dating myself, the old Keds commercial. You know, run faster, jump higher. That's where we're going in this business. And every one of us can either choose to participate in this evolutionary process or try to fight the inevitable tide of change, and unfortunately we'll lose. The tide of change is here. The only reason it's not probably stronger than what it is today is because carriers are still working for the most part on the healthcare industry, which is hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and we're just a small little portion of that. So, for example, 20-some years ago, I can remember when these crazy things called CMOs were getting thrown on the table, and almost everybody hated CMOs. What is this case management order thing? Well, within a few years, at least in the western states, that became the standard operating procedure. It wasn't crazy anymore. It took a few years. Took some lawyers from San Diego and Orange County to really kind of adopt it and say, you know what, there is a better way to skin the cat. It's going to help out. It's going to be more efficient. And now what we're talking about is what goes beyond the CMO concept. And there's been a lot of work. I mean, I'm not saying, and you'll hear some of it today, some of the new concepts aren't really new. They go back 20 years plus. And their time hasn't come. Maybe their time is now. Maybe it'll never come. Maybe pieces of that should come out and be implemented. And that's really what we're here to talk about. It's important to, I think, to not be afraid to talk about these concepts, put them on the table. Sometimes it's difficult in certain settings to put these concepts and ideas on the table, but that's the whole point here. And we're going to do it next year and the year after that, is put them on the table, put pieces together, come back, talk about what works, what doesn't work, as changes are adapted, and that's really all this conference is about. We're not that coverage isn't important. Coverage is very important, but in a sense, it's not the driving force like it used to be 15, 20 years ago. It's still very important, obviously, but surviving is important. Trying to find subcontractors and generals who have insurance anymore. How are the developers going to handle these enormous SIRs? And how are they going to run the cases from this point? So those are the things we're talking about. In the past, the traditional CD litigation model has been a very expensive model. It's still a very expensive model. Litigation is a very expensive model for resolution. But in a lot of ways, it's necessary. There are certain complex types of cases. Depends upon the plaintiff attorney, depends upon a lot of different factors. How do we do that? How do we get to the next level? We need carriers. We need the builders to focus and understand on how to build a good product and to understand and accept their responsibility early in the process when things are going wrong or have gone wrong. We need carriers to focus on developing and selling insurance products and services that provide real coverage when needed. We need the judiciary to allow creative approaches to resolution. We need the mediators to focus on the mediation process and not have to play babysitter to parties in process. We need plaintiff defense and cross-defendant attorneys to understand that there are viable options for case management and resolution. And we all know that, but we're trying to emphasize that. And we need consultants to realize that they are not needed to be advocates for positions, but an important part of the resolution process. Therefore, we need to raise the overall awareness for options to complex case handling and resolution. As all of you know, constructing any project in today's marketplace, or even in the marketplace of the last 25 years, particularly in production housing, is a complicated and difficult process that takes hundreds, if not thousands of people. While traditional thermonuclear litigation is an important option for litigants, and there are going to be cases that have to go to trial, and I think some people are going to talk about some of these cases should go to trial. They have to go to trial. It's not always the best answer. And so simply, let's refine the process. Let's motivate people to refine the process and move forward. Already talked about that. I actually did notes this year. This is amazing. Obviously, there's a wide variation in approaches depending upon the jurisdiction. So remember, too, when you're talking here today, there's folks from the West Coast, from the East Coast, from the Midwest. So it's a little bit generic, but it has to be because we can't drill down. We don't have a California session on what's going on. So the client, you have to be aware of the jurisdiction that the folks are talking about, client and stakeholder approach, local business environments and economies. They're going to be talking about viability of stakeholders in the process and types of applicable, boy, that's a big word for this morning, applicable insurance. So our format today is very simple, and tomorrow. We have 4 panels plus a short presentation just before lunch today. Each panel will address certain issues that present difficulties, issues, or impediments to resolution. And then each panel will then present concrete thoughts and examples of how those can be approached and how to deal with them, keeping in mind the big picture, so that we can have better utilization of the precious resources that it takes to resolve complex cases: time, energy, and money. So before we get going, a couple of housekeeping issues. Cell phones, if you can turn them into vibrate or off or whatever, that would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions about anything, talk to one of the Lima staff. We're all in these cool blue fishing shirts. Let you know that VEADR 2013 is already scheduled for July 25th and 26th of 2013 here in Key West. So the main focus here is to provide clients, carriers, and others to spend a little bit of time each year to think, discuss, and develop creative approaches to the resolution of complex cases. VEADR is one of those platforms. We're one of the conferences. That's our sole focus. That's all we're going to talk about.